Welcome, everyone. Good morning. We are Know the Rules of the Game podcast. We're so exciting to have you this morning, and thank you all. Again, I want to remind everyone, this is our podcast. We just launched in 2020. Know the Rules of the Game is presented by Women in Housing Real Estate Ecosystem. Each episode will be featuring invigorating and open discussions with key executive leaders and experts on recent trends and developments in the housing and real estate ecosystem, as well as intimate discussions with peers, family, and friends that will take and make listeners feel a part of the conversation. Guests will share a surprising fact about themselves, speakers, and I share a tip of the week. So here I am, Desiree Patno, CEO, President of the Women in Housing Ecosystem, and I love to bring to you, our attention today is going to be Hyepin. She is the founder and CEO of Faith and Community Empowerment, FACE, and she's the president and founder of Korean Churches for Community Development, KCCD, if I could get that correct. So love my voice. Welcome, Hyepin. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, I just lost it January 1st, decided to take the whole year and see how well I could do with no voice, right?
It sounds pretty good. I like it.
You like that deep, sexy voice there, getting there.
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Well, this is our second podcast of the year, and we're so excited. We had Angie Weeks do the first one on home ownership, where you're going to be speaking also at Chapman University, so it's so exciting. And I'd like to continue a little bit about the podcast to really integrate a little bit about myself and a little about what we're going to cover on the podcast as we move forward, just so we can get the momentum going and keep it going. So bear with me for a second here. I also own a real estate brokerage, Desiree Patno Enterprises, for 30 years. I'm the advisor investor for Amicus Brain, which is an AI for aging population. And I'm the Chief Strategic Officer for Zulu Time, which is for transitional for holistic care for veterans. I'm the publisher and connector and a national speaker for wealth of knowledge across a vast economic footprint. That includes social impact, gender equality, and access to capital. And I'm also a personalized advisory services to the real estate and family office community. So with that being said, our topics are really going to be hard-hitting because that's the purpose of the Know the Rules of the Game podcast. Financial resources, natural disasters, procuring contracts, government relations, which is where Hyepin and I really excel in the things that we've done for the several decades. Real estate and home ownership, acquisitions, dispositions, gender lens, affordable housing, diversity, inclusion, women on boards, mentorship, harassment of any form, all the way down to women-owned businesses, STEM, aging population, family offices, and then National Awareness Month. What is happening throughout the year, the different categories they have per month, and then the new laws in 2020. We really want to bring it to the forefront, which is our newest trademark for Know the Rules of the Game for our professional development tools to revitalize communication and partnerships between industries as we work together to form mindful, strategic solutions achieved through a gender lens. This podcast will help facilitate our goal of achieving a greater social impact by reaching a wider audience and engaging with like-minded individuals and organizations. So today, our tip of the day is going to be visible wherever you go. I'm a firm believer that wherever you go, in all your travels, where you go to speak, where you go to visit, make sure you're visible and you're there to help. The inspirational quote for today: "You can, you should, and if you're brave enough to start, you will," by Stephen King. And I think that relates so powerful to Hyepin, because as a national nonprofit empowering churches and nonprofits to leverage the resources by building capacity, leadership, and partnerships into economic development and serving as a bridge between the Asian American community and the greater community, I really believe that is embodied in what you and who you do. So Hyepin, welcome.
Thank you.
So I'd like to ask you, as we always like to start off our conversations, is what is something that people don't know about you that would really be mind-blowing?
Well, I don't know. I like to say a few. I shared an elevator ride with Tom Cruise, but beyond that, I had the privilege a few years ago to be invited to the Oval Office to be with President Obama with 7 other faith leaders. It was a bucket list moment that I will never forget.
How cool is that? I mean, you can imagine being in that space a couple years ago, and then being in that space today, the difference, and what it like to feel like to walk into the room, not only from the decorations that have changed, the levels of addressing global issues, national issues, local issues, the mindset of the administration changes. I mean, to be in that presence, I'm sure it has had a profound effect, especially in what you do.
It has, and I think that it's important to be engaged, whoever may be in office. At the same time, I think leadership is quite important, and why people are in that leadership position and their agenda, I think, is also important as well. And for myself, I think that I've learned over the years that position does matter, and you mentioned be visible wherever you go, and that's very much consistent with, in many ways, our motto about shining your light. I think that just in general, a lot of underserved communities, women, whoever that may not have that platform, we are often just dismissed, even though each one of us has that God-given light that we could bring value to others. But oftentimes, because of that dismissal, and because we also don't have the platform or fail to be visible or shine our light, that I think both, both sides lose out as well.
Yeah. Well, the win-win is the collaboration. You know, you and I have made a pact, in 2020 to stay current, stay connected in a more engaging, mindful calendar, to make sure that we're being accountable to each other and how we could leverage our resources between us. Because, as we travel the world and go all these places, who you know and who I know, and sharing, together is so much more powerful. And whether we have the same ideologies and ideas, we're leveraging each other's resources and leveraging each other's voices, who we might know, or platforms we have built out, or ideologies to go. And I believe that we all, as you say, have that purpose to help each other, and those who are underrepresented or might not have a voice. Like, I didn't have one for 10 days. It was really mind-blowing for me not to be able to talk. I mean, in a deep way. And the struggles I went through of the immediate frustration, because I was trying to say something and the voice was not following. And it immediately, got to me, the point to where I had to just take a breath, walk out, calm down and say, it's okay, just text, just, try to, maneuver. And if you think about, if you're in a crowd and they can't see you or hear you, and you have good to offer because you are all good, we have to give that platform. And that's why the value add that you bring to the community is unbelievable. So,
Thank you.
well, it's we all have different angles, different ways to resonate with people. And I think that's so powerful, because how I say it, how you say it can be the same way, but we sound different. We have a different way of delivering it, and we have a different way of connecting, but we're still the same visionary to bring that conversation to light, right?
That's correct. I don't know, people are familiar with the work that we do. Our
Please.
organization, FACE and Community Empowerment, and the acronym is FACE, and we say that we strive to bring the face of God through service and lift those who are faceless. And over the past 18, almost 19 now, in February it will be 19 years, we've had over 700 partners. You talked about partnership. And over 700 partners, from White House to Fortune 500 companies. And when we first started on this journey, we would enter a room and would be immediately dismissed. I just remember some of the potential partners, government officials, basically they would basically, kind of put their arms around each other, and basically the look on their face was like, how can I help you, right? But by shining our light and showing the strengths that our community had, particularly in the Korean faith community, where 75% are connected to the church, and some of the mega churches, their membership goes to 8,000 folks that show up on Sunday morning, and their offering is $1 million to 15 million. Right. And when I share these numbers, whether we're elected officials or corporate heads, that how can I help you turn to how can I help you? Right.
Right.
And so I think, again, that being visible, how can you be strategic in being visible? And so that they do take interest in who you are and what you have to bring to the table, and use that voice then to that attention to bring investments to the community. And so over the years, we've done quite a number of initiatives, definitely home ownership, I'm sure that I would love to talk about, but in addition, job training, mental health, capacity building jobs, delinquent youth, I mean, you name it, electric cars, there's so many of these different resources that are available, but I believe that people are hurting, and they don't realize that potentially there's resources, there's people who care, there's programs that might be able to help them and empower them, especially around foreclosure. I mean, last year we had a program in which, through Keep Your Home California, you could help people get their mortgage payments paid for 18 months, if they had lost a job or their business went down. So these are just amazing resources that are out there. But unfortunately, again, people who are underserved, underrepresented, who are voiceless, that information may never get to them. And that's where we try to fill the gap. And in addition, I would say for the Asian community, there's that whole model minority myth that Asians are doing so well, right? So they don't need any help. And so,
really?
So many times, we just get consistently left out of these types of programs in terms of outreach, investments program, what translation, etc. So we've had to, put in a lot of energy and effort also to lift that visibility of some of the pain that's often, hidden or covered, right? Because of that model minority myth. One example, the home ownership rate for the Korean community is the lowest of any group in LA County. And that's shocking for a lot of people, but it's even shocking to Koreans because they're told, that, what is it?
They're doing so well.
They're doing well. So it's just over the years, and part of my story also is that I grew up as a pastor's kid. And my mom and dad, they thought they were going to save a lot of souls, preach the gospel, which they did. But also because of the need in the congregation being so great, they ended up really becoming unpaid social workers. And for what they had, they did good. But I saw them struggle, and I always thought there should be a better way. And when I grew up, I saw this model of a very prominent African-American church, First AME, with Pastor Cecil Murray, with Reverend Mark Whitlock, and I just saw that by the church creating an affiliate nonprofit and partnering with the greater community, whether it's government, corporations, and others, they could leverage resources, they could pay their workers, but really increase their impact because of that partnership that creates mutuality, right? And that they could see each other. And so also as a believer, God was being honored. This minority community, the faith community was increasing their influence as their work and impact became known, and they were invited to the decision-making table. So going from a position of dismissal or being dismissed to being a welcome, valued, influential stakeholder, that middle ground, I think it's called, it's powerful. It's called empowerment. And I see that as a win for everyone involved.
Well, the couple things you hit on, and congratulations for all your success. I remember you telling me about getting a $5 million grant. years ago. So, it from, as you said, being dismissed or being dismissal, to secure a property, and then, hey, here's $5 million. You're just okay. But a couple facts that I really want to hone in here, and that's one of the reasons we call this the Know the Rules of the Game, that was trademarked in the end of 2019. We're so lucky to have that as our trademark. If you think about it, it's been around in my lifetime, and not to have someone take it, it's just, thank you, mind-blowing. But you hit a couple things. You talked about 18 months that someone could not, last year there was a way to, if you had a health issue or you had some kind of job loss, you could forgo 18 months of paying your mortgage. These are things, and you also talked about the data analytics of the value add that you brought to the community, the numbers. R&D is so important, research and development, and having those statistics. You were able to walk in, and instead of being a person and looking, hey, look at me, I got this, and I want to share with you, you were able to completely put together a way of presenting the information, saying, I know you don't know, and what you need to know, you can value add directly. And by saying that you had X amount of money or X amount of impact by your network of Korean community, you were able to, as you said, how can I help you, and have that energy to come behind it, because they're like, wait a second, you have that much wealth, you have that much development, so powerful. And that's one of the reasons.
I love it. I feel like it's vindication when they go from that.
Yes.
How can I help you? Genuine. How can I help you, right?
Well, they say money talks, right? And numbers, and it's one of the things that it's changing in the end of 2019. I'm so happy. It's not about the ROI, return on investments. It's really become the long game on how we can become strategic long-term and help each other, because it's not only personally, professionally, but the idea is we're all going to have bumps in the roads. And the idea is who can be your mission aligned person that you can count on to help you when things aren't going perfect, or you need something to help leverage. And I really believe that is where the Stephen King quote comes out and says, if you are brave enough to start, you embody the word empowerment. No matter how successful or unsuccessful you are, we all have to be empowered, because we all have our own fears of not asking or doing something, whether it's asking for help or asking for someone to hear me out, or asking someone to just have a moment to speak to, right? And that is where I think, from me, for you, empowerment is you take that person and make them feel loved in a way of economically showing them how things are interplayed, from a spiritual way to a holistic way, to a way to get them to feel like this is how I can build this step to this step to this step to lead to a path to go to where you feel empowered. And having a home is part of that path. And that's what's so, I believe that, and having numbers to support that. I mean, if we go into your ABC News highlight reel, that is so powerful. Tell everyone, our podcast listeners, about that highlight reel that I think is so powerful.
Oh, you mean the ABC Channel 7? Okay, yeah. So we have been able to help a lot of people. I mean, over 10,000, home dreamers, be on their way to realizing their dream of home ownership. But last year, we were covered by ABC Channel 7, and this was a 22-year-old named Kane, and he was able to come, and within a matter of 4 months, he was able to get into his home. And basically, His income was less than $35,000, and he only put down $2,900, and he was able to buy a $249,000 condo in Lake Balboa, Van Nuys. So this is city of LA, right? And literally it was only $2,900, and he was just sharing that it was a dream come true. And the fact that we came alongside and helped him to connect with $115,000 of down payment, but it wasn't just a down payment, but it was the right, the realtors who knew where to go and find that type of property, and to get the seller to agree and the lender to be able to bring all the different down payment programs together, right? As well as to have all the different professionals who are part of our 8-hour class. That's how he started on this journey with us. He received an 8-hour certificate, but all the different professionals who come in to prepare him so that he could launch. And so he was he was the fastest turnaround. And for City of LA, in their history of their $90,000 down payment assistance program, he was the youngest ever that they ever helped.
Okay, youngest, fastest, downtown LA.
On my end, right? But the youngest for sure from the city of LA.
Well, but think about that. From not having a place to 4 months later owning his own place in one of the highest priced markets, to be able to afford something and making, barely, what I consider affordable rent income,
yes.
let alone home ownership income.
Yeah, he said that his mortgage payment was less than the rent that he was paying. So,
I mean, it's just, and you think, most people think, well, condo has an association fee or has a base point that's going to offset that cost versus a home, a detached property. So these are incredible things. And that's truly why we came up with Know the Rules of the Game, is that instead of just having the Hyepins of the world coming out with these incredible golden nuggets that, scale it, is we need to put this into a forum that really connects the dots so everyone can enjoy, whether it's us being professionals, both of us, or whether it's someone who did not have, fair shake, and now is saying, I want to take on the world. How do I do it? And that's what this is all about, right?
That's right. And as you say, here you are, and I think, as you said, that you and I are both committed to not just empowering our own individual lives, right? But bringing others along to help them, equip them, empower them, so that they will also live empowered lives that ultimately not only bless their lives, but bless everyone, including us, that's part of the community.
Absolutely. So that being said, why did you become so passionate about it? I mean, what drove you to say, this is what I am here to do? I mean, we heard about mom and dad. We talked about, that you knew there had to be, quote, a better way. Is there something else that transcends past that you could say that really amplified it?
For me, as a believer, the Bible says in Matthew 5:16, you are the light of the world. Let your light shine before men, that they may see your good works and praise your Father who's in heaven. So for me, it's a very much a spiritual motivation, in that I really want to bring faith that is valued, right, in the larger public space because of the impact and the transformation that we bring, the service that we bring. And so that for me is one that serves as a motivation. The second part, as I said, I think, being an immigrant daughter, I came when I was 7, and being the underdog and being, living in poverty, being dismissed, having language problems, all those kind of things. And over the years, I've seen the difference that power makes, having access to power, right? And so in that way, I feel the pain, not only for myself, but for others who may be going through that same journey. And so I find it very rewarding when I'm able to empower those who are dismissed and overlooked, and their voice does not get heard. than to be in a place where I think it's very, I think it's two ways. There's the internal light that they actually learn to love themselves, right? A lot of times everyone around them is saying, you're ugly, you're bad, you're unimportant, you're whatever it may be. But that journey, which with the right mentorship, I think they're able to discover a lot faster what is it that they have that is actually of value and of beauty. So that's one. And I think then also with the right platform, that visibility gets known. I think of Susan Boyle. I think that's a perfect example, you know, with Britain's Got Talent. She had this amazing gift, but, you know, when she got on that stage initially, the judge, the audience, everyone dismissed her, you know, because she was this frumpy old lady that looked very, very not important.
Put well together, right. She was very, okay, right,
Right, but then as soon as she opened her mouth and she started to sing, you know, that was just a defining moment of how she was able to be blessed and how the world in turn was blessed with her gift. And what it took was, you know, because she had that same gift and before and after that Britain's Got Talent, but it was that platform that allowed her gift to be made visible. And with a little bit of mentorship, she looked a lot less frumpy, right?
Well, you know, a little bit of makeup and hair and clothing and you know, attention.
Right? Even how to market herself, and that platform made the world of a difference. And like I said, Susan Boyle was blessed, but everyone else got blessed with her gift. And I think that's kind of exciting. So like I said, it's like, it's vindication when people dismiss you or dismiss others, and then suddenly they get that aha and welcome, you know, from how can I help you to how can I help you? That genuine excitement, I think it's very exciting. It's very exciting, that to see people, including yourself, your community, and those around you, live out their destiny. I find that very
absolutely. Well, the thing that gets the thing that gets me about Susan, to piggyback on that, was, you know, which leads us into our next question, is the mentoring aspect. You know, we talk about, you know, first you had to get the guts to get up there and to be in the mindset to sing and walk out on stage. You know, she lived her whole life with cats. Lived her whole life in isolation, more or less, and had no place to go and just lived her own little world. And here she was in front of, you know, TV, in front of cameras and lights, action, and to come out and sing and not freeze. You know, we don't think of the fact that it's not only her gift, but she didn't freeze in the moment to express and showcase her gift. And then, if we all remember, it's been over 11 years since she, you know, was on Britain's Got Talent. But the second phase of it is right after, about a year or two after being famous, she went into a dark place and she needed to step back for a little bit and had to have, you know, a bunch of intervention, whether it was from Simon Cowell or whoever that came in to really help get her out of her, you know, immediate fame to where and how to come back. And to see the faces and the light that she brings when she came back and appeared several times in all her album releases. In fact, I own her albums and a joy to see her. But that serves us into the moment that empowerment is also part of an ongoing process. It's not just, hey, here's the light, let me click it. Oh, you know, Hyepin, you're the most, you have the light that glows, that never goes. You and I have our days or our moments that we, why, who, where, you know, we have to reassess. And we all do as human beings. It's part of our cultural DNA. And that brings us to our next question. In honor of National Mentoring Month in January, who has been your greatest mentor and how do you aspire to mentor others?
Well, you know, that's always a tough question. However, first, my mom, I think the fact that she was the one, in spite of all the different, you know, as an immigrant lady with limited English ability and also dismissal, especially from kind of an Asian Korean culture, she was able to transcend all of that and help a lot of people, save a lot of souls, and just kind of her indomitable spirit. So first, my mom, who actually her community sort of component of her faith ministry, I think was a motivation for me, first of all. And then second is actually Reverend Mark Whitlock would first say me with Pastor Cecil Murray. I think he helped me to see a model. And he also mentored me in terms of introducing me to a lot of folks in which the church, right, by partnering with the broader community and shining their light and showing those metrics that you talked about. They did that. I was able to see a model in which the church could be a powerful force and be welcomed, right, through their impact. So I would definitely say that. And the last I would say is also Amy Semple McPherson. She was the first female pastor at a time in the 1920s, 30s, you know, where women leadership was still very hard. But in addition, she used radio. She was very progressive. She used radio to first used radio actually to spread the gospel. So very progressive, very, you know, innovative. But more than that, she brought her faith, social service, her healing, spiritual gifts, as well as there was one more dimension, but at the end of, and her solid foundation in God's word. But she was able to transcend all levels of society. Like she would come into town, she traveled all over the country, and she would be on the front page of like the New York Times, the LA Times, right? She would be able to like hang out with Charlie Chaplin and the movie stars, and she would call all these ladies who were, you know, very wealthy to, you know, open up their closets so she could help all the poor. When she would go out for conferences in the evening, but in the morning she would visit all the orphanages, right? So she modeled a very full, comprehensive, multidimensional aspect of an individual that walked her faith, impacted society, transcended a lot of different communities. So I would say those three are great models.
That's unbelievable. Fabulous. A couple things struck a chord. First and foremost, you're talking about the 20s. That's 100 years ago.
Wow. That's weird. I didn't even realize
right?
that.
It's 100 years ago. And if you think about a couple different aspects, 100 years ago, you know, the right to vote for women, the Hotel Figueroa in LA County was the very first built commercial building and funded by women and set up to house hotels for working women as they traveled.
Wow.
The men were only allowed to stay on the first 3 floors, and the women got to stay on the floors 4 and up. And it was for working mothers who traveled.
Wow.
So, yeah, so when you talk about the value, and the YMCA is who started this, bought it out, and been part of it. So when you talk about leveraging community, church, or organizations to empower and grow who you are and shine your light even bigger and brighter, it just really amplifies that. And if you think about, you know, the 20s, from voting rights to, you know, the impact of how powerful, and I believe that here we are at 100-year anniversary of the 20s, and I really believe that the women's force of this generation of 20s, or this centurion of women versus what they were back in the 1900s, are going to have the same push of change, that you're going to see very dominant players come into space in so many different fields, as you're already seeing going through it, and we're going to be more defined. So I think it's a whole thing to really reflect, right?
Absolutely. Wow. 100 years. That's amazing. And
yeah,
we're grateful for all these pioneers who went ahead of us, right, and went on that journey.
Yeah, I mean,
it's because of all these people, right? And I want to in turn share the same with others as well.
Well, I think Dudo for me too. I mean, where I'm right behind you. Totally agree. You know, having the voices of these incredible women who to our opening, you know, tip of the day or inspirational quote, you should, and if you're brave enough to start, you will. And, you know, we're still playing out that same thing all these years later. Excellent. So for a final question, what piece of advice would you give to those to best leverage their resources and overall economic development, both personally and professionally?
So So I guess personally, I think it's important again to know who you are and to be able to embrace everything that you are. I think for the longest time, me being a woman, I always wanted to fight against it. I think me being Korean or immigrant, that was something I fought against. Even my parents being ministers, being against being a pastor's kid, right? Eventually I became a minister myself, but it was just everything about me I was resisting and fighting. But I think, as mentioned, as a believer, everyone has their God-given light, every part of their life, including their pain. And I find that pain is the most powerful platform and pathway that will lead you to your purpose and destiny in life. And so, as mentioned, being a pastor's kid, there was a lot of pain points, and I could have chosen, like many other pastors' kids or PKs, to run away, right? But I actually ran towards it. And I think about Nick Buici, who is a quadriplegic, but, instead of, again, running away, he embraced who he was, and he was able to transcend. And so now he's traveling around the world. I mean, truly, he has, beautiful children, beautiful wife, and he has inspired so many people, been on television, world-renowned speaker. So again, at a personal level, I think just embracing everything about who you are, including your pain. So that's at a personal level. I think at a professional level, again, I find that it's very interesting to do a few things. One is go across outside of your community to other ethnic communities, to other groups, because they have already put in the energy to find those, to pioneer, to journey ahead of you, to find those resources. And especially for me, like as an Asian American, I think I've gained a lot befriending and connecting with the African American community, the Latino community, the Jewish community, the women's, so there's all these different leadership groups that I would say I find very powerful because they've done the hard work to find the resources, and in addition, there's a lot of shared invitations. And so it's a fast track. You might be the least qualified in that room, but it doesn't matter when you're in that group. Everyone gets that invite. No, seriously. That's right. So whether it's for fellowships that lead to, again, more opportunities, to invites that lead to business opportunities, so many. So I would say to join across different ethnic groups, and then join, again, leadership opportunities, do leadership, do service, and volunteer, because I find that in many ways that's the best way to topple down the hierarchy, right? Flatten the hierarchy. So that, and then finally, I think whatever group that you're part of, you should strengthen that, because it leads to unexpected opportunities. So for me also, I have built a base within the Korean community and / the Asian community. So, getting to know at the time, like the state treasurer, John Chung, right now, Fiona Ma, and, Congress members and people like that, that maybe if I was just a normal professional without that ethnicity, it might have been harder for me to access people in positions of power, whether it's in government or corporate or foundations. But because I was part of this smaller, whether it's an ethnic group or a women's group or, whatever group that oftentimes is underserved, right? But by you being part of that group, it could actually be turned into a strength. So I think those are some things that lead to economic development and business opportunities.
So you're talking about leadership.
Yes. And also, again, taking on service and leadership, right? So be visible. So when you go anywhere, serve, volunteer, and then step up. Right, step up and be visible, and that will lead.
Exactly, it's a great closing because when you go there, you ask questions. The people see you, how you formulate, how you respond, and you see everyone else's experiences brought to the forefront, and whatever they can see in you. Because as we talked about Susan Boyle, we judged her before she opened up her mouth.
That's right.
So when you see someone, don't judge them by their cover. judge them by their content. That's what's within. And you're not going to know it if you don't ask and find out and let them flourish what they have inside them.
That's correct.
And 1 hour to 1 day does not define someone. Defining is the longevity of who and what they are and what they bring to the table. Because trust me, I know I've made mistakes and will continue to make mistakes, and I believe that what makes me human and self-worth. So I want to thank you very much, Hyepin. This was fantastic. And I really enjoyed our time. And I hope to have you back again on the podcast as we go through. Every week, we're going to be bringing something new, something different. So please check back. We will have our calendar up with all the different episodes as we build them out and what the themes are going to be. So if you're listening and you'd like to be a guest on our call, if you'd like to be our participant in some questions you'd like to bring to the table that we include, or even themes that you'd like to see on this podcast, or follow us. Again, this is NAWRB. You can see us on our website, or you can follow me in LinkedIn. I'm very prolific in LinkedIn. And then a special guest for empowerment. Anyone who's a nonprofit would like to be part of our organization to share what they're doing, we have a special for you. So we're not going to tell you what that special is, but trust me, it's so powerful. And when I told Hyepin a couple of weeks ago, she was like, I didn't know that. So it is really an incredible way of getting your information out there. So again, NAWRB.com. The podcast is under Know the Rules of the Game. And thank you very much, Hyepin. And how do we get a hold of you if they'd like to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so first they could go to our website, facela.org, so FACE.LA.org, or they could email us at info@facela.org. And we welcome everyone. We serve everyone. So.
I love it. I love it. Empower every day. And as Brad Pitt said a while ago, he says, make sure you do something nice for someone tomorrow. So with that being said, empower everyone, let everyone know about what Hyepin's doing up there, and love it. Thank you very much, Hyepin, and we'll talk to you soon. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Know the Rules of the Game by Desiree Patno.